The names of some of the English ships which took part in the Spanish Armada have become legends. Names such as Victory, Dreadnought, Ark Royal, Vanguard, Swiftsure, Triumph and Lion have been used over and over again because they took part in that eventful campaign. But what about the Spanish ships? We have already done a video on the Spanish ship the Girona and its fateful destiny on the storm-dashed Irish coast. But let us now take a look at the Spanish flagship, the San Martin. The San Martin was, like many things in the Spanish Armada, not Spanish. She was finished in 1580 by the Portuguese and was classified as a large galleon, weighing roughly 900 tons. Unfortunately, Portugal had just come under the rule of King Philip II of Spain, and so the San Martin joined the Spanish fleet. Once joined, the ship was soon felt to be the best in the fleet, and consequently became the flagship of Medina Sidonia, the commander-in-chief of the Spanish Armada. She was 180 foot long and 40 feet wide. She carried an impressive array of 48 heavy guns on 2 enclosed gun decks, plus several smaller anti-personnel weapons. The San Martin had 3 masts, 2 square rig masts and a lateen mizzenmast. Not only did she carry the fleet commander Medina Sidonia, but also the senior army officer, Maestre de Francisco de Bobadilla. Along with the high-ranking Bobadilla, Medina Sidonia also sailed with his chief of staff, Diego Flores de Valdez. Being the flagship and carrying such important men, she was well armed with 48 heavy guns, plus an array of smaller weapons. Some of these big guns were capable of firing projectiles weighing 40 pounds. Like the English flagship, the Ark Royal, the San Martin played a pivotal role in the Armada campaign. In the very first skirmish of the Spanish Armada, about 9 o'clock in the morning saw an opening which could have been seen as a mark of chivalry. Howard sent his personal pinnace, aptly named Disdain, to show the Duke of Medina defiance. The tiny vessel moved towards San Martin, fired a solitary culverin at the Spanish flagship, then beat a retreat with all speed. The gauntlet had been thrown down. In reply, Medina Sidonia raised a silk standard, the sacred banner of the expedition, bearing the Latin legend Exsurge Domini et vindica causam tuam, or Arise, O Lord, and vindicate thy cause. Medina Sidonia ordered 1 cannon to be fired, a signal for the Armada to assume a defensive posture. At this signal, the entire Armada formed itself into a large defensive crescent, the supply ships in the centre, and the most powerfully armed ships defending the wings. Later in the campaign, the San Martin was used to rescue the galleon San Juan, commanded by his fiery second-in-command, Martinez de Recalde. The San Juan had suffered damage and was soon faced with 12 English galleons. It is recorded that the San Martin fought off between 12 and 15 enemy vessels for a whole hour and managed to escape. The Spanish claimed it was 24 ships that attacked her. Her ability to survive may have been due to the San Martin being crewed with professional gunners to man the cannon, rather than use superfluous mariners for such a purpose. It is recorded that her high standard of gunnery, along with good use of her musketeers, meant the English kept their distance. After the fiercest engagements in the Channel, the San Martin had only lost 12 men, but did suffer severe damage below the waterline. Before the fireship attack on the Spanish at Calais, Medina Sidonia aboard the San Martin had ordered his captains to expect fireships, as it was a tactic Drake had used before, and that the wind and tide conditions were right. He told his captains not to panic, and not to head out to sea if they appeared. However, although the Spanish patrol boats were able to intercept the fireships, panic set in. The fireships themselves did little damage, and the ones that were not towed away ended up on the shore where they slowly burned themselves out. Aghast, Medina Sidonia realised only a few captains had obeyed his orders, and at first light he left Calais in the San Martin to catch up with the 130 ships that had fled. After the attack of the fireships, Medina Sidonia had only 6 galleons at first, but as time went on, more Spanish ships belatedly arrived on the scene. There were perhaps 25 ships in all. Most of them were well armed and ready to give a good account of themselves. The resulting engagement, known to history as the Battle of Gravelines, was the climax of the Armada campaign. The English, encouraged by their successes thus far, closed with their prey and unleashed broadside after broadside into the towering Spanish galleons. Drake led the way in revenge, followed by the rest of his squadron. English cannonballs punched holes into San Martin's side, smashed guns off their mountings, and splintered her upper works. Still the galleon fought on. Frobisher's squadron followed Drake's, circling the Spanish flagship like a pack of wolves around a wounded stag. During this engagement, other Spanish ships also came in for a share of punishment. One unnamed carrack heeled over before the wind, blood pouring from her scuppers. Cannonballs took off arms and legs with horrifying ease and smashed through bulkheads, sending lethal showers of wooden splinters whizzing through the air. A Catholic priest called Geronimo de Torre was on board the Palomo Blanca. He describes a ship that had been taking a battering just like the San Martin. The San Mateo was a thing of pity to see, riddled with shots like a sieve. If they had not managed to get the water out of her, they must have gone to the bottom with all hands. All her sails and rigging were torn. Of her sailors many perished, and of her soldiers even few were left. Severely damaged, and with the assistance of the galleon San Mateus, she escaped the attack and led the Armada around Scotland, around Ireland, and through the Atlantic storms that wrecked about 60 ships, and finally the San Martin returned to Spain. Arriving in Spanish waters, she had to be towed into the port at Santander. Because of a storm, the San Martin had to take refuge at Laredo, where Medina Sidonia found the galleass Napolitana and other ships in harbour. The ship was full of sick crew and was itself in a sad condition.